Hey, what is going on, everyone? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, and welcome to Deep Astrology, your weekly astrology forecast for the week of May 5th through the 11th of 2020. Happy Cinco de Mayo out there. Didn't actually see much of it, unfortunately. If you never watched the show before, this is where I go deep into the charts, which are brought to you by Astrological, and then, of course, I'm going to channel the horoscope to you. But we're doing this all on highvibe.tv. So if you want to watch this show in its full form, be a member of highvibe.tv. Down below you can see us, highvibe.tv, or download any of our apps, of course, to subscribe, to be able to get not only my daily video content and my weekly content for sun sign horoscopes, but also my weekly tarot, my weekly intuitive, my daily tarot, and like this show, the weekly deep astrology in its full form with the charts. And we also have full disclosure on Wednesdays, and Craig and I have been coming up with a couple new show formats right now. So make sure that you're a member. Well, I also have my 3.5-hour video. It is called 2020 What Is Next, or What's Next? Really, what is next? I cover a 3.5-hour video. I just put out the Era of Providence so everybody could see the style and format and how I do these story talks and how I do these predictions. So make sure that you can watch that video for free on YouTube, or you can watch it on the app for free. It's called Era of Providence, but this is now, people want to know what's next at this point. And I filmed this last week, exactly, I don't even know, it was like end of April. So this is going into the whole rest of 2020 and my major predictions. You're definitely going to want to check it out. And we just finished the awesome Love Masterclass on the High Vibe TV School. So you can now purchase it and get all of the 10 classes that are 3.5 hours to 4 hours a piece. So it's about 40 hours of content just about learning your love story and how to read other people's love stories. And especially if you don't know anything about astrology, I start from square one, go through every planet and every sign and every house. We do case studies. All the secrets I've learned through all the decade of readings that I've been doing and relationship readings, and teach you all the traditional stuff to even stuff you've never heard of before. Make sure that you get it right now. Go to highvibetvschool.com to purchase. All right, well, this is quite the week in the astrology. In my opinion, it is one of those you better be ready with. Do we have free will? I definitely believe we do. I'm a very big fatalistic person, though, as being an astrologer, but I feel that it's these crossroad moments in life that are so powerful and what bring free will to the surface, our crossroads, and they're choices that we make in our life. And this is that time. We just had the nodes of the moon, which were in Cancer, with the north and the south being in Capricorn, that were there from November of 2018 until Monday, May 4th of 2020. So if you look at your life in that 18-month story, it's like the emotions that you've been really targeting and trying to have in your life felt so many different blocks. It was so heavy with all of the south node Capricorn stuff with Saturn and Pluto, and of course Jupiter, and all the eclipse energy that was at the end of 2019 and the beginning of 2020, that story, that chapter, and definitely the connection to source, to this reality, those are those connecting points. That's what creates the eclipses, is this intersection point, or these lunar nodes, or in Latin, knots. So it's definitely a very powerful change to have it with the north node now in Gemini for the next 18 months and the south node in Sag. And so we're going to be talking today about how this new cycle is so imperative about the new story of the next 18 months, and how powerful this full moon in Scorpio is this week on Thursday, that is about making those final transformations, those endings, or those new beginnings, or just making the major transformations to make your life better. It's a sun in Taurus still. We've got Mercury in Taurus. We've got Uranus in Taurus. And there's this huge opposition to the full moon. Then, of course, Mars. It's on its last week of being in Aquarius, and this is with Saturn that's in Aquarius, that's getting ready for its stationary retrograde coming late Sunday night, believe it or not, if you're in America on the West Coast. So there's going to be a slowdown feeling, and it makes choices feel so intense, but it also is the reminder that we are coming to the end of our climbing of the ladder of the year. So if you want to have something more in your life, especially when it comes to innovation and moving into, much more connection into your world, this is the week where you make those choices. When Saturn comes into its stopping position, it feels like a block, but with so many things I'm going to show you in the charts today, and other aspects like Mercury coming into Gemini this week as well, near the end of this week, and it's going to be at its full fast speed. We're going to see Mercury just cruise through and literally rocket ship through Gemini in about 2.5 weeks. I mean, literally go through a whole entire sign. That's why Mercury is the fastest planet. And of course, Jupiter and Venus. Those two are stationing this week, and they come retrograde on the 12th and 13th. We're going to see Venus and then Jupiter, but they're going to come right back to back. Bam, bam, bam. And those are the two benefics. But ironically enough, especially if you understand the essential dignities of them and so forth, they're not really well positioned at the moment, especially as Venus this week is going to be in square to Neptune still as it stations. And that brings a lot of confusions in the relationship front, in projects and money, and even also the environment we live in and how to make it feel better, which I think is so important. And I think it's so important to pay attention to this because with Jupiter as well getting ready to come into its retrograde, if you take Saturn, you take Venus, and you take Jupiter, all coming into their stationary positions this week, and by this weekend into Monday and into Tuesday, all three of them just go whomp retrograde. And so this is going to be a moment, yes, I know a lot of astrologers out there are like, yeah, this okay, this calms things down, it stops things, you know, but to me, I'm always like, well, can't we squeeze in all the things we want to make with a full moon in Scorpio, the sun in Taurus, that we want to have for our life before Jupiter closes all the doors? Saturn closes the ladder of how much taller we can reach or how many more things we could add to our plate. And with Venus retrograde, the goodness, the love, the relationships, are we sure we want to go through, you know, a Venus retrograde with learning about something we already know about? Or do we want to learn about something that we don't know about yet? I mean, there's a lot that there is to contemplate here. There's always two sides of the story with, of course, Gemini, where Venus and this now North Node is. But we got to remember we're in Taurus, and the number one thing for us to focus on this week is the quality of our life, the values, and knowing if that value is being received. This full moon in Scorpio has a lot of intense aspects to it. Not only will it be trining over to Neptune while Mars is finishing its transit through Aquarius, so we really need to really learn to release the things that really are not serving us. Remember that the moon is at its fall position in Scorpio. It does not like to be there. That's because it can become too emotionally attached. And it's this sun in Taurus, this Uranus in Taurus, this Mercury in Taurus that is saying, hey, moon, I know you're full. I know that you have all these emotional, intense attachments to things, but what is not serving us to be able to have the quality and the beauty of the life that we want to have? These are the darker shades. These are the shadow aspects of ourself that we have to really be in contemplation with, and especially with Venus coming into its definite, stationary position. I'm going to show you how slow it's going in the charts today. Then, of course, with Saturn and also Jupiter all stopping, there's something to say about, you know what? Are we going to go through this new portal here as we just stepped into a new nodal cycle? And are we just going to get down to the point first? Or are we going to just start this story and go into the South Node and do the whole hopeful thing? Because the problem with the South Node in Sagittarius is it is Jupiter ruled. And you have to remember that the dispositor of that is Jupiter, right? Of the South Node in Sag. And where's Jupiter? It's in Capricorn, about to go retrograde. So if you're going to try and hope your way through situations that you're not going to get to the point of, that you already know the logical sense, you already know, especially intuitively with Venus and Gemini in exact square to Neptune, like there is this facade of everything is confusion. It's really more about you and your fear of getting to the point and getting to the real change in your environment of your life and getting to the point quick. Because there's this part of this South Node in Sag, it just is always like, everything's going to be all good, dog. Everything's going to be all good, babe. It's like, really? This North Node in Gemini is just saying, let's get to the points quick. And it wants to, and it's going to be very frustrated, especially as Venus is here, going to go retrograde. So, North Node, remember, is Rahu. It's this dragon's head, and it's got no body, so it just wants to eat, and it has no stomach. So it just really wants to get into this Gemini world, and it wants to stimulate, and it wants to figure things out, and it wants to experience through actual data that it can actually feel in our reality, opposed to where it's a belief system in Sag, where it's a big hope, it's a big dream, but it's not experienced yet, so you have to build up that dream. It's the excitement when people want to go on a vacation, or they want to take a big travel, right? It's all in your perspective, opposed to where in Gemini it's like, no, I'm on the train right now, I'm in my car and it's a rough ride, you know what I mean? Like, or it's a smooth ride. It's like, there's a big difference here. And this is gonna bring up travel. You know, you gotta remember that like, this South Node now is in Sag for the next 18 months. So, world travel's not gonna be as easy for these next 18 months, especially while Jupiter's in Capricorn with Pluto, by the way, and of course with Saturn coming retrograde by the beginning, well, it's actually Sunday evening if you are in on the West Coast, 9:09 p.m. Oh no, yeah, 9:09 p.m. Sunday night. So there is something to say about us, you know, with Saturn going to retrograde back into Capricorn at the end of June. Like, there's not going to be a lot of flexibility when it comes to world travel, but local travel, or everything is about local energy. The local energy of your soul life, the local energy of the city that you're in. It's going to feel very much about this, like, localization, I guess you could call it, of your life. And is this the localization of how you want it to be? Because if we don't localize our life in a way that makes us feel like we create our own town, it's almost like Sim City. That's the way, and it's a Taurus Sim City. What is the best scenario for your little city that you're building in your life? Like, the one thing about Gemini, and especially when you get into North Node here, and especially with Venus too, or any planets, is that it's about the way that you operate in that city. It's like the local store you go to, and your commute to work, or your commute to, if you're, I don't know, taking care of a family member, and what store do you stop off of? Where do you like to get gas? Where do you like to go do this? Where do you like to, right? Like, in your life, is this all the kind of environment in the world that you want it to be like? This is this week where, with this full moon in Scorpio, it's like we can make the changes only to get to the betterness of it by looking at those shadow aspects of our emotions that Neptune's trying to say, hey, like, will you just like let it go? Maybe it's like, okay, like maybe I'm trying to get you to the real dream. And there's Venus as well in quincunx to this full moon, kind of like, hey, I know I'm not getting a lot of love right now, but hey, like, we could figure out a better way if maybe we weren't so attached to that moon in Scorpio. So there's a lot about attachments to things that we don't want in our lives that we have to actually cut away. And that's also the other thing that you want to do before Saturn retrograde is make sure that you make your cuts, because this is these last moments where Saturn's so stopped, but it's these last little things that you get into that list that gets approved by the CEO, or it gets approved by the boss at your work, or it gets approved by, you know, when you're a kid, like, is it okay if we get this, mom or dad? You know, because that's what Saturn rules. It's the parental figure, it's the CEO, it's the boss. And this is that moment before the boss is like, I'm taking my break, right? And there's nothing worse than, I mean, there's that good feeling sometimes if you're a worker, right? And your boss is like, hey, I'm out of town for the next couple weeks, right? But you remember that Saturn is going to retrograde here all the way into the fall. So you got to remember that there's this aspect of like, it might feel good to not have the boss at work, but then when, you know, a couple days go by or a couple weeks of that, when you actually need to get stuff, you're like, hey, I kind of want approval on this. It's like, you're going to have to wait till I get back, and I'm not coming back for, you know, a long time. It's like, wait, what? So I'm stuck here with, that's it? That's why I'm asking everybody to look at their life of 2018 and 2019 and realize, with all the planets that were direct, right, through all those years, and in 2020 we had it, except for that little weird retrograde that we had in February into March. So I think it was February 16th into March 9th there. That you have to remember that you've had all your shots. The universe took you into hyperspace. And even though I know it was under lockdowns or whatever, but it's like you've seen it. And since April 9th, we've had Venus that entered its shadow period. So when it comes to our relationships and when it comes to, you know, this position, it's like the universe has been talking to you since April 9th, like this has got to change, or you got to make some sort of figuring out here, because this retrograde, oh, it'll figure it out. But if you're coming into any kind of retrograde, which is a big lesson of the internalization of to see the flip side of things, right? And I would say that this is a moment for everybody to go, hey, like, do I want to go through this Venus school about relationships with a square to Neptune, about learning the subconscious issues that I'm having, or if you're suppressing something in a relationship, or it's the beauty of knowing the intuitive aspects, knowing the visions that are possible. Like, do you want to go through the school of revealing subconscious stuff you already know in your denial? Or do you want to go through the school of, okay, we understand those things and let's actually apply them in different ways so we can try and build something beautiful? So I feel that it's like, we do have this extreme calling to really make choices that might feel like it's pressurized. But the truth is that they've been going on for long enough to where, especially Saturn is kind of like, I've given you a lot of time. I went direct at the end of September of 2019. It's not like, like Saturn saying, hey, I don't know, I didn't give you enough time or something. Like, you've had plenty of time. Plenty of time. So you kind of can't get weird about it when it's like a full moon in Scorpio that's going to reveal and be intense. And where is that emotion? Afraid to have a better world. We got Mercury and Neptune making a sextile too. That means that we are getting the spiritual knowing, and even though maybe to try and understand how to physically make that be seen might be a more go with the flow situation, it's a lot better to go with that intuition right now than it is to overcalculate by fears and overcalculate by, well, what looks better, like in this hopeful process of continuing to put hope onto certain situations that we already know you've already looked at all the doors. Because one thing about the South Node in Sag is that, and I was born with these nodes, so I can help for the next 18 months probably a lot with learning a lot of lessons from this, is like, how many more doors do you want to look down until you finally have to choose a door in life? And stick with that door. And know that there's a point to where it's like you have to come to points. Like, I've had to learn in my life with the South Node in Sag and the North Node in Gemini, like, I just got to get to the point quick. Because I will sit and wait for a long time with hope and optimism, whether it was jobs in my past or whether it was relationships or whether it's anything in my life. I'll just sit and kind of go, oh, well, it looks good, and I'm just hoping that it's going to work out, and I think it will, even though I've got no data that proves it. I'm going on my own hopes and my dreams on that, even though the data usually is saying no, but I'll still stay hopeful. It was when I finally went, you know what, in my life, you know what, I'm just going to get to the point real quick. Like by being honest with people or just telling, somebody like, hey, I want to let you know this, instead of waiting till, well, maybe they won't notice that I didn't do that or I didn't fill that out. I've been there in my life, I think we all have, where it's just like you're doing things in life or you're applying for something or anything and you're just kind of like, well, maybe they won't see that or maybe they won't ask about that or maybe they won't, right? There's that over-hopeful energy. Or like, let's say if you're in a weird position in a relationship, since this is definitely, I would say, one of these kind of peak moments of that here, especially if you go back to 8 years ago when it was the Venus retrograde in Gemini that happened in 2012 in May and June, that I would say, and that was also during eclipse time, that you have to remember that it's like, that was also the nodes in opposite position, by the way. That was North Node in Sag, South Node in Gemini. So we have to remember, like, when you get in relationships and it's weird, sometimes when there's so much suppression or they're ones that don't make sense or they're ones that have major issues that need to be addressed, we become, with South Node and Sag, almost hopeful that, well, maybe they won't bring that up, or maybe I won't have to bring that up, or maybe I can just push this another day through, and then maybe that energy can just continue to just be pushed through. Maybe it'll just never have to come up. Well, we're in a time where that's an illusion now. And this also is a time where it's like perspective and opinion are not going to sway or be positively influenced on people by trying to convert people to certain opinions. This might be a little bit of a trigger, but it's like, especially in like this spiritual community, the idea that you can just wake somebody up right now so extreme who might not be on the same page with you on this. Like, I'm telling people right now, like during this time, like the The focus is no more longer to keep red pilling people, because like they'll have to kind of figure it out on their own. There's enough data, there's enough information. Like we need to focus on, you know, the people in Zion, the people that are here, that are awake, and what are we doing, and who are we connecting with, and what are we going to, what is the message, what is the mission? We've got, as Venus is stationing, as we got the Sun in Taurus, they're going to be coming together, right? And this is all through the star system of the Pleiades, the seven sisters. And this is the same alignment that happened, but with a south node, meaning it was almost the illusion that it would all come the way we thought it would come. We thought that 2012 would bring the light work at this other way, but we all didn't realize that it was actually more like we needed to be a little bit more positive and open to other alternatives of how the light work was going to look for this last 7.5 years that we've been through the 2012 shift. That actually people like me, and probably a lot of us all out there, right, thought it would be a little bit more like, woo, you know, this is going to be amazing. But no, it wasn't. It was definitely a lot more like, this is like definitely light work, like work. And it was intense. And there was a Pluto-Uranus square, and there was a Saturn in Scorpio. You have to remember, what were the themes that we came into after the Venus retrograde and during the Venus retrograde? And the major themes were the end of the nodes of Gemini, South Node, Sag, North Node, but also the Saturn in Libra transit that was going to finish up and come direct and come into Scorpio. And Pluto and Uranus was 2012 through 2015, so that was the year that we saw Pluto and Uranus finally make their exact square for the first time. And that's the same Pluto-Uranus square that we did have. Of course, it was with Pluto in Cancer, Uranus in Aries, that we saw in the Great Depression time and brought the Wall Street crash, right? So we had this extreme, it was also the solar maximum during those years that followed 2012, and now we're here in a solar minimum. So what you want to do as an astrologer, or if you're just really into astrology, is you want to take a look at these cycles, and you want to see that how rare that this Venus retrograde is coming also with a Mars retrograde that will follow, where in 2012 it was a Mars retrograde that was in Virgo, then it was a Venus retrograde in Gemini. So it's the years where I feel that we see the Mars retrograde and then the Venus retrograde that always kind of feel a little bit more, you know, like we think that it's going to look this way, and then we're just trying to patch things up with Venus. But this one's, Venus is the patch up first, and then we got to go through kind of the courageous and the re-identification of our lives first. And I really want people to know that on this year, you know, don't use this patch, don't use this Band-Aid, because people, Venus retrogrades, remember, try to bring exes back. They try and patch relationships up that aren't working, and by the end of it, it doesn't, and then it just basically makes it worse. I'm just gonna be honest with you. It makes it worse. So, and then to see a Mars that's gonna go retrograde in Aries in its home energy and square all that stuff coming in September, October, November, and especially if you look at the transits of October, like we are not gonna have an easy fall. So I'm just trying to say that you wanna patch your life up, or do you want to use Venus retrograde as more of a bringing in of the good stuff into your life? Or are you just trying to bring in good stuff to, like a Band-Aid, to cover the blood for a while, and then when it leaves, it reveals that it didn't do enough, and then you lose it, and then you're like, I'm going to have to do something different. And then it's like, oh. So these are very important moments before these happen. And this is that week where, gosh, I've waited 8 years to be able to give people this information, to say, don't go in thinking you could patch something up and fix it. You'd be an idiot. That's the whole idea of North Node in Gemini and Venus in Gemini. Like, don't start getting over hopeful about the point that you already know and the intuition that you already know. And I'm not trying to sound like I'm some mean person. I'm just trying to give you the facts and the data of the astrology, and to realize that if you're going to build your little Sim City right now of your life, that this is the moment where you make the changes, and how you use the Venus retrograde is either the excitement of the redecoration of it, or for those that are too afraid with this full moon in Scorpio, to release and come into Taurus, which is where Uranus is direct. And remember, Uranus is past We're in retrograde last year, so it's out of shadow. Uranus is taking us to new heights. If you're going to try and take something that's old to new heights, if you're trying to be that one of those pigs with a straw house or even a wood house right now and thinking it's going to go brick through this transit, it ain't going to happen because you're taking on dead weight. Uranus wants to only take the one pig that already built the brick house and learned it all to the next zone, because we'll just keep it in that same story. That's the best way I can put this. Do you want to stay in the same story of the three little pigs, or what happens to the pig that leaves? Does it turn into Babe? Maybe that pig gets thrown in the movie Babe, and now it's having a direct life, and it's directing sheep, and it's actually getting the recognition of being a sheepdog, right? Like there's a whole other story that this could be. Or are you just so scared in your life to face your shadow of the truth? Because this is North Node Gemini, and I am a truth bringer, and that is my job, and that is what your job is now. Are you going to lie to yourself? Because believe it or not, the lies come from Jupiter. I call him Uncle Jupe, because he's like in the back, like, don't tell your dad, here's those smokes I got you. Hey, your dad used to do this when I was with him as a kid, right? This is the dark side of Jupiter we're going to start to see, especially as it's in its fall position, and it's going to come stationary retrograde right at the beginning of this next week. So if you really think you're going to use, if you're thinking of a patch right now in any kind of relationship or any kind of project or any kind of, and I'm going to be honest with you, if you look at the world today and we look at where we're at in the craziness, and you think that the patches they're giving out are going to patch your plumbing situation of your life up, especially, you are crazy. Because this is not enough patching that's going to happen. So let's take that for an example. If you think that the things that the government are trying to do to help you out right now in your life, whether it's small business or just personal, is enough, you're crazy, especially with taxes coming up in July. And what about when it comes to relationships? Do you think that whatever patch you're coming up with in your delusional head and all that are actually going to make it through this? Take a look at the charts. That's a good one, man. Woo! I'm on a roll tonight. Some real deep. Super deep. That's the hard part. Whenever you're dealing with a shift in the nodes, you got to shift your whole perspective, which is ironic since maybe it's not perspective. We need to shift to the truth. This story starts off right away at the galactic center. And remember that we are at this galactic center. And actually what's interesting is with the south node here in Sag, as it comes to that galactic center, if you want to get exact degrees, 27 degrees, okay, of Sag. But there is this to me as the cross point, that there's enough space, even though it is a thin Milky Way that we are in, it's like a disk. But there is something to say that it is this line between Sag and Capricorn that happens to be the galactic shift point and the galactic center, per se. And it's these nodes with the south, from where we almost come from, and the energies that come from that area, where when we go to the north, we start to go towards where Cancer is, Sirius, and then we go, and if you look at the fixed stars from Sirius A and B, and then you start coming to the Seven Sisters, right? And you start to come into where, if you actually look up the old real star seed or traditional elements of Lumeria, or if you even want to get into probably the way of understanding, like a lot of people like to talk about Nibiru or Planet X, right? If you ever look at it in a chart, I think it's up in Taurus, right? It's up there hanging out by the Pleiades, right? So sometimes there's like this dark story with it, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's hard to say, but it is something to say that the North Node is facing all these more positive, brighter stars, but they're only bright because they come together in a way. Whereas like on the other side, where we come into Sag, and when later in, of course, 2020, but mainly in 2021, when we come into Antaurus, we start to come into that big 500 times our sun red giant energy. And I'm just trying to say that there is something deeply where it's like the darker energy definitely likes to combine into one force and try and do everything, whereas the light energy is a bunch of lights kind of scattered about. And so this is where the North is pointing, that when it comes to your relationships, when it comes to the life, and when it comes to the sim city of your world that you're creating in yourself right now, you want to build this from a foundation of picking the energies that have that light and not getting, especially with the full moon in Scorpio, not getting lost into your shadow, not getting lost into your fear of change from something that is not already bringing you or receiving you something good, and move it towards this very fatalistic moment. Because there's something to say that the Mayans were right. They were right when it came to 2012. They were right with the Venus retrograde energy of 2012. That was majorly intense, and that was a shift in our lives. And we are coming back to replay that story in a new story. So I'm just here to say this is not something to take lightly at all. Not at all. So if you are not on highvibe.tv, this is where you can join us, and you'll be able to watch the charts, or you can just sit if you're on YouTube and listen to the audio. And this is a recording if you're on YouTube, but if you're right now listening, you're on High Vibe, you could be watching this live. All right, let's look at the charts. And I have a lot of crazy charts, and I'm using some of Astrogold's new stuff, and I'm also going to be looking at some of the Helio perspectives as well. So here we are on Tuesday, May the 5th, Cinco de Mayo. So we just saw the Sun Mercury make its Cassini point here. That means that, it's like, my biggest thing is that we are clear exactly of what it is that makes us feel better. Like, it's almost like we've seen a lot of things. This is the end last week of Jupiter right before it comes retrograde, right? It's come to 27 degrees here. Okay, so all right, we've seen all the things that work and don't work and that we want to have for our life. So what's the big question? Why are we with this Venus here squaring over to Neptune, right? Like, what are we getting confused about? Subconscious issues, fears, suppression. Suppression is the big thing, right? Like, I don't, and it's sensitivity, it's suppression, really. I don't want to deal with that. I want to be numb. I'm going to try and numb myself through this. Maybe I can numb the situation. Maybe I can just put ice on it and numb it for a little bit. Maybe I can take a Vicodin, right? Like, there's that whole, like, okay, that'll work for like 4 hours, and then what do you got to do? Maybe you got to do physical therapy, or, but if you're just continuing like this, there's something that's got to change. And so we are seeing also as well, like I said, Mars here at 24, it's going to finish out. By the time we get to Monday night into Tuesday, we are going to see Mars come into Pisces. So this is the last week to make the radical connections to the life you want. Ironic, right before we come into all these retrogrades. And of course, I just brought up these nodes, right? We got the North node now here and the South node here, right here, Gemini and Sagittarius. And this is where the Milky Way comes in right here. This is that beautiful zone. If I actually were to, yeah, here we go. Like, it is this zone, and it's very powerful. So the nodes are in alignment with our place in the galaxy and our true positioning of the center point of where that ecliptic line is of that galaxy. And that's why when we look up and we see the Milky Way, like, imagine these eclipses that are coming up. Remember, we have 2 lunars and a solar. Start June 5th. June 21st will be a solar. And then we come on that other side on July 5th. So, we're going to come into 3 eclipses while Venus is in retrograde, except for the July 5th one. But at least 2 while this Venus retrograde happens. So I'm just trying to say this is no joke. All right, let's take a look at the next chart, which is Wednesday. Wednesday, this is where this full moon starts to begin, as the moon is going to make its opposition here over to Uranus. And I think that this is an important notion to take, is that here is Uranus going to say, there's an elevator. Are you going to take it right now, or are you emotionally going to stay stuck by living in that shadow or living in that obsession? This moon is at its fall position. And what I like about this new chart that Astrogold did is they'll throw the essential dignities here. So let's just show you the moon here, which I just highlighted right here. It's at -3 points. It's in its fall. Okay, you can see the fall right here, the score, boom. So it's not in a happy position. So I just want to let you know that we're not seeing positive aspects with this full moon, as far as the moon is not happy here in Scorpio. And I also do want to remind people that, like Jupiter, right? Like here's Jupiter, it's in its fall, right? It's -9. Not a very good position. And Jupiter is that south node dispositor, right? Because it's in Sag, the south node. So hopes and positivity of trying to put band-aids on things right now is not going to be the way to do it. Not at all. It's not going to be good. All right? But there's something to say about, are you ready to take the better, ride in your life to a better place? It might be hard. I mean, Uranus and Taurus isn't easy. Because it's like, yeah, your values have to come first and you have to know the better part of things. But that moon in Scorpio gets a little bit lost, right? Because it gets too hunkered down into its desires, its needs, and its wants. It's almost like living in a room where there's no, especially the moon, right? It likes to be in like rooms. It likes to be low to the ground. It likes to be comfortable. But it's like it's like blackout sheets. Like I'm just going to black out, even though I know this is not where I want to be. It's like, let me just not deal with it. And Uranus is saying, I'm trying to pull you out. And both are at fall position, right? So it's like, it's hard because it's like, this is a physical better reality, but I'm going to have to rip something off. I have to rip the super glue off. Yeah? Just rip it off. Not that hard. And what's interesting is here's Mars here at 25 degrees, right? And it's with Lilith here at 26 Aries. So there's like this ability to be able to not be afraid to do this. And I don't understand why anybody, I can understand, but there is something to say where, I don't know, there's a lot where people are kind of afraid to just, look at the world today that we're at. Like, it's already slow and so slow, but everybody knows that we have to make crazier ways to live our lives in order to feel the things that we need to feel and to have and to do. And there's nothing worse than already sitting in lockdown energy or a world that they're trying to say is reopening, but it's not fully, right? Like, are you going to want to continue with just living in the mundane of that? How your little SimCity is of your own little world determines that. And as we come into this full moon's a pretty intense one, all right? Here we are on Thursday at 3:45 a.m. Pacific. It's going to happen at 6:45 a.m. Eastern, okay? But here it is. Here's that full moon in Scorpio, 17 degrees. Here's that sun, 17 degrees. We got Mercury here at 20, all right? So actually what I'll do here is I'll erase that. Here we go. Boom. All right, so we got Mercury here at 20, and it's with Neptune. But look at that, Venus has now come to 21, so it's still in square, but there's something to say that this full moon with the trine over to Neptune is about what can we release? Can we release this? What's our intuition saying? To go build something great with that Mercury that's in Taurus there. Even though it might feel like I don't really know how it's going to look, it's like it doesn't matter. At least it's intuitively known. It's like when you're redressing up a house and you just know that couch or that tapestry or that bed sheets. Like you don't know what it looks like yet in your place, but you do. You know what I mean? That's that whole like, all right, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna buy it. There's that whole idea of Taurus about buying our realities right now of what we make choices with. We're gonna buy that, and are you gonna be with this full moon in Scorpio? Are you gonna invest in that? How much have you already invested in the stock of your life of that energy? Did it show up the way that you want to? Are you really gonna just continue to wait for the market to shift when this is not a shifting market? If we're gonna use an actual term of the market, we're in a bear market. We're not in a bull market. And a bear market makes you feel like you're kind of like a hibernating bear, and it's shorts. People don't know what that means. It just means that people are just every day trading. Like I made a couple money here, and boom, out. Okay, wait for a minute. Okay, it went low, buy, and then went up, and then sell. And it's like a gambling game. Is that what you're doing with the investments of your emotions into things that really, whether it's relationships, especially Venus is about to retrograde here, and it is square to Neptune. And there's something to say with Mars here in Aquarius and Saturn in Aquarius. Like, these are about our understandings that are difficult, about the choices we need to make, about the identity of who we choose in our SimCity, and the choices that we make, and the identity that we take towards that. That there's a lot connected to that right now. A lot. And on this full moon, you know, it is interesting that Chiron is still in opposition to Juno. And so, you know, it's almost like we want the ultimate connections of the kind of partner that we want, that resonates with us the best. But with Chiron there, it's like, are we feeling like we're just there to heal someone? That's going kind of like, maybe we need to learn to just heal by not trying to be the hero, right? Like, it wasn't like Jupiter or Juno was a hero for each other. They became heroes, and she became the goddess of all goddesses because of her marriage to the gods of all the gods, right? Zeus, right? Like, you know, there's that whole thing of Jupiter and Zeus, and Jupiter being the gods of the gods. That's what made Juno the goddess of the goddesses. So with Chiron in opposition to the goddess of the goddesses, there is something to say, like, what are you holding on to in your ego? Ego means your own identity's way, or your own definition's way of the story. Especially with Libra, Juno, like partnerships, are you holding your goddess energy away of the kind of people that will fit your life because you're trying to do some heroic thing to heal somebody, when really you're not, with this moon that's going to be an exact, you know, quincunx here on Wednesday, but on Thursday when it's full, it's like, come on, like, we don't need to do that. So this full moon's going to be intense. I'm just going to be real with you. Not going to be light. I mean, we got minor aspects to Pluto here that's already retrograde. And remember, it's the nodes changing. We got to start thinking with our heads. And let me just show you right here during this full moon, right? So the Mercury's fast as hell. Look at that, plus 2 degrees a day, okay? Look at Venus here, slow, 13 minutes a day. It's about to stop. See that slow? Venus is faster than that. Venus does way over 1 degree a day normally. Let's see Mars. It's getting its speed, you know, but Mars is at pretty much at its fastest speed. So take action on things. Don't try and saturate on things too long. Jupiter, slow, less than a minute. It's about 1 minute a day. That's all it's doing. Not doing anything. It's stopping. It's about to come retrograde. Saturn, look at that. 22 seconds a day. It means it's not going anywhere. It's not moving at all. So these are the 3 that are going to retrograde. So look at Uranus, fast. It's really fast. It's doing 3 minutes a day, but that's really fast for an outer planet that's way beyond the bounds of Saturn. And you got Neptune, which it's still fast. It's not slowing, but it is at its stationary position where it will retrograde. So there is something to say that it's not fast, but it is fast. At least it's not slowing down like these 3. And then, of course, you already got Pluto, which is slowing down and retrograded, but it's already starting to move at 20 minutes. So actually, it's kind of funny that Saturn and Pluto are about the same speed, even though Pluto's going backwards, Saturn's going forward, right? And we got Chiron, which has not come retrograde yet, and it's not on its slowdown or its stationary position yet. And we got this Venus, or this Juno retro, which is going on. So I'm just trying to say the fast energies are changing the emotions, mentally figuring out what we really want and buying it, and Mars, taking action. It might be a little crazy. You might have to, the only way that you're going to find out if something's good in life is if you take a risk. This is Saturn in Aquarius. This is the last moments before it comes retrograde with this full moon, and there's this thing about this emotional change. If you come here to Friday on May 8th, here we are, post full moon, moon's in Sag. Now this is now the new place where the moon and the south node get into this weird energy. Now there's no planets here, so we're not seeing like some sort of like any occulting of the moon, right? But it is where we can get delusional a little bit. Or we can really start to look at this nice trine to Chiron. Maybe we need to look at different outlooks. I mean, it's not about not being positive. I don't want to say that. It's about making sure that we don't get over positive. Like, I can do another hit of that drug. Like, no. Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not I'm not trying, I'm just being real. Like, she's a fellow Leo and she passed away, but don't Whitney Houston things with South Node and Sag, right? Like, don't get in the bathtub and start popping that and doing this and popping this and sitting in there for 5 hours in Beverly Hills Hotel and just start thinking, that's all good. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, whenever you start to go and keep taking it, I could go a little bit farther. I could take this a little bit farther. Nope, and this moon's going to teach us that lesson. Or it's going to benefit us if we did do the North Node thing, right? If we did think and we did do what was logical and we got to the point quick, then it will open the doors for us. That's how this stuff works. This full moon will instantly give you gratification by Friday by those choices that we're building up on Wednesday into Thursday. You might see people do it on Wednesday. But look at this Mercury already, like I said, it's doing 2.5 degrees a day. Bam, it's already at 23 degrees. So now we're going to see Mercury trine over to Pluto and Jupiter. And this is kind of this last chance by the universe. Like, I'm going to give you the truth, Mercury, Pluto, but it's only one day with Mercury, Pluto. Not even, it's like half a day. It's doing 2.5 degrees like a day. Look at that, Mercury, almost 2.5, 209. That is fast. Mercury's just going, so it's like, oh, okay, Pluto, I'll take that truth. Okay, man, it's like, are you going to be aware of that? Or are you just going to be in your, I'm trying to patch things up and keep everything and be over positive too much? Don't get lost in that. When we come to Saturday, now this is kind of an interesting day because this moon is getting ready to come by the South Node. We're going to feel the nodes for the first time in these positions in, good 18 years since the last time they were exiting. But it is just going to be an interesting thing to feel here. And we are seeing the squares to Neptune, right, with the moon. And we are seeing Venus stopping and the moon oppose Venus. So we're going to see a big T-square from the moon to Neptune. So this is going to be about, are you living in a dream that logically can become a physical part of your reality in a right way and that has the right doors that are open that you maybe haven't explored yet? Or do you feel like you've overexplored it and there's no more doors left? It will not be a dream, but it will be a mirage, right? So, sure, dreams and mirages can seem like the same thing, but what about like an actual one that can come true? Like dreams do come true, mirages do come true too by not actually being there. And I think that there's something to say that by this Saturday we'll know, like, what? This was a mirage? Oh my gosh. And that's kind of that last call, because there's Mercury at 25 degrees, and it's going to be coming on top of Algol that day where, that's the demon star, and it could trick you into thinking, no, it's like it reminds me of the old like little devil and the old angel that are on your sides. Like, no, keep buying it with the moon in the South Node and Sag. Keep trying, you can do it, even though it knows no. And then there's this angel saying like, hey, let's do the pure thing. Let's not try and numb ourselves out. Let's not try, especially with that moon square Neptune, especially with that Venus square Neptune, especially that moon-Venus opposition, right? It might be like, oh, this is plaguing me emotionally. Or if you step into something new, you might be like, oh, I don't know. But you got to push through this and look at the facts, look at the dreams, and look at the quality and know that and focus on that and turn these things into real dreams as long as they're not patch jobs. It's definitely not a bike repair shop with patches. And Saturn is going to retrograde Sunday evening, West Coast. So Saturn is stopped, and this is these last call points, and especially with Mercury trining over to Pluto and Jupiter stopping, this is like to get this last big implosion picture of what needs to change and what doors can really open, and it has to be decisions made on the best path for your life. And with Taurus, with Algol there, oh my gosh, like, are you going to really go and use this energy for the power of the good, or are you going to be the power of the bad? Are you letting demons take over your head to persuade you to do what you know is not good for your long term? Think about that. Sunday, the Saturn retrograde comes, but I have the chart here at 3:45, and I'm just going to skip to that, but I wanted to show you just the moon will be in Capricorn for the first time in the last 18 months without a South Node. So we're going to feel Jupiter, Pluto without any illusionary energies. We're going to feel that there is a major change. This is also while Jupiter's stationing, about to come retrograde. You're going to feel like if there is any last call, this is like jumping out the bus on Speed, the movie. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta get off the bus. Like, they hang down the bottom and then they start dragging you down there. And here's Mars, 28 degrees, right? So it's going to be starting to square Mercury. So there's that whole element of like, okay, I've got this message of what's good. And here's like Mars being like, so I have to do this crazy thing in order to get the good shit? Shit. You know what I mean? Like, I just can't connect however I want to. No, like you need this in order to have that excitement or that future. You need this to have your future. That's something people should start listening to in themselves. I have to have a seed in order to grow a plant to grow the future. If I have a seed that's dead and I don't have water, I won't grow my future. And there are things that the universe are showing that are dead. And there are things that are showing that are bright and alive. What are you stuck in? What are you attached to? A full moon in Scorpio can get attached to the eeriness like a Hot Topic store for too long. Like, I like Hot Topic, but I mean, I'm thinking about when I was in high school here, you know what I mean, like 2000. But like, you know, I never hung out in Hot Topic like all day. You know what I mean? It wasn't like I just sat there all day. Or all week, or all year, or all, you know what I mean? So here it is, May the 10th, as Saturn retrogrades, Mercury at 28 degrees here, right? In exact square to Mars. So that's a royal beating to your ego if you don't have the things that Saturn was like, I'm already out, I've already cashed, I've signed the last checks, right? So it's kind of like this, right? It's like, you know, like Saturn's kind of like this, like, hey, yeah, here's Saturn, right? It's like, I've signed the checks, and like, that's kind of that, like, I'm done here. And I'm going back into my house. Like, I just came here to Aquarius where I know you rebels are there and all the excitement of your future, but I'm going to go back to Capricorn so I can rule the world. And that's a little freaky. And with a big smack in the face from Mercury to Mars and Mars to Mercury, right? It's like, it could be frustration, anger. And we don't want to push this onto people, but internally we could do it too if we realize that we just didn't make the right choices or we were stuck in the delusion. This is going to be where like you'll see in people who aren't aware of astrology or aren't aware of just intuition, this is where you get smacked in the head. We got the sun that's going to be in sextile to Neptune. So you either were in the mirage or you're in the dream that will become real, right? Mirages don't become real. Dreams do. And you got to listen to your gut. And if you didn't listen to your gut on this day, with that Mars-Mercury square, it's smacking you in the head again. And then you're going to have to be compassionate over, it's okay, you didn't listen to spirit, and you're going to have to like tell yourself, but you're going to be dealing, here's what you chose. It's kind of like, fuck, man, I went to the store and that's what I got. There's Saturn retrograde there. Boom, with the moon in in Capricorn, with Pluto and Jupiter almost laughing together. Even though the moon hates to be there too. That's not a good feeling. The moon hates Capricorn. It's detriment there. Right? Let's show you. Right? Moon. Look at it. Detriment, moon, boom. What's that? Negative points. It's not a good moon. Look at that. Sun, not happy either in Taurus. Look at that. Jupiter, not happy. But here's Saturn retrograding. Did you take the highest pointed planet right now in the zodiac on the day that Saturn retrogrades? And did you actually make those choices for the connection in the world that you want? It's going to be a big choice. And look at that Mercury, this North Node at 29, this Venus here. Bang. This thing, Venus is ready to retrograde. It's so slow. I mean, it's so slow. It's stationing. Exact. Look at this. Boom. It's only doing 4 minutes. That's nothing. Remember, degrees are 1 degree a day. It's like you can see the degrees in a chart. Minutes, they go up to 59 minutes, right? Seconds are here. You're doing 4 minutes, we're talking about geometry minutes here. It's nothing. So this is a very stopped Venus. This is a stopped and going now retrograde Saturn, and this is a stopped Jupiter. And I've always said, and I'm going to show you guys Monday's chart now, on May 11th, I don't like Jupiter retrogrades. I never have. I've always been somebody who doesn't like it because I don't like Saturn retrogrades either because it's kind of like that knowing as an astrologer. I've been doing it so long, you know, okay, no more checks are going to be cashed as far as like, you know, big decisions from the universe for you that are going to kind of impact your long-term life and your achievements. And then Jupiter is like, I'm not going to open up any more doors. I'm going to like help you understand the doors you open. So to get both of them back to back and then to get Venus retrograde, like, yeah, like you can have this and this is what we're going to study. You can't keep going back to the cupboard and get another one, or you can't go back out there in the world and get another person. Like, it's kind of like, what? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just, to see all three happen at the same time on this Monday, not exciting to me, especially as we see the moon that's going to cover this Jupiter-Pluto. We're going to feel it. And with the sun now, that's at 21 degrees, leaving Neptune, it's like we got this energy, right? Like it was known. And here's Mars, right? 29 degrees. Like, and I'm going to be honest with you, this Mars here at 29 degrees is edgy, right? Mars at 29 is always edgy. And it's like, this is now parachute jump into a new world before you go into it or not. Like, this is your last call. And I know people, I don't even like to say that stuff, especially when it's a day of the moon, right? Like, and you know, that 8th hour of the day that I'm putting at 2:58, I'm putting it the time that Mercury comes into Gemini. So Mercury is in Gemini now, and it's like super factual, and it's like, I already know what to build here. We're gonna go figure it out. We're gonna go make the changes in the environment, and Mercury is flying fast. This can bring up a lot of anxiety if you were with and holding the wrong info, or you made some choices that were not good, that don't feel like you want to go through that, because this Venus is about to station retrograde, and so is this Jupiter. And this is the last day of Jupiter to like, what door is it? Like, oh, but it's slow. Jupiter's slow, and it's in its detriment, right? It's only doing 31 seconds. That's nothing. It's not, you can't even see it move. So it's not going to be easy unless you use the full moon to get to the truth, because then the moon comes with the south node, and then comes through Capricorn, and then it's going to come through Aquarius with the malefics, and then Pisces with Mars as a malefic. We're going to go into a story into next week that is either going to be, okay, I can hunker down and handle this because I made some really good choices and it feels good to have this stuff and to do this, or I feel stupid and I feel like an idiot and I don't want to be stuck with this, and then it's like the delusionary. That's what it's like, a cognitive dissonance about, you know, like, oh, but you know, I'm at this crazy weird circus, but I'm gonna take and eat whatever the popcorn is here and just try and get through it, and then get out to the crazy side, like, oh my gosh. Now I do want to say this, I have one more chart to show you all here, which is the day that Saturn retrogrades on Sunday, 9:09 p.m. West Coast, this is the Helio chart. And what I think is so crazy is on that moment, and we're going to see it as well with the Venus retrograde. We have Venus. The reason why it's about to retrograde is because Venus is actually, remember that Helio is the sun at the center of the chart, not the earth. Here's the earth right here. So the reason why we're in Scorpio is because when we're at earth, we look at the sun, and what's the backdrop that we see? Taurus. That's why we say the sun's in Taurus. It's because the view from earth, all right? Now, when you take a look at this chart, Venus is catching up to the sun. Because why? Because whenever a planet gets close to the sun, to our Earth, right? Whenever we see it, that's because it's going to be very close, but it disappears because it's going to cross the sun, right? Here's the sun's line, right? It's going to cross the sun. That's why it disappears. That's why we can't see Venus. But how funny that the day Saturn retrogrades, Venus is opposed Uranus exactly in Helio. And this is a big deal because it's almost like relationships and Venus and Scorpio are you going to receive the kind of relationships or money or values or whatever you want because you're willing to take the wild ride to a better life? And with Mercury and Gemini and square to Neptune, you know, it's like there's a lot of delusion this week because I'm showing you guys Sunday's chart. So think about how fast Mercury is. Mercury's going to square Neptune here probably, I think it jumps 88 days to I think it's like 4 degrees a day. So that means that Friday, after the full moon, it's like if you didn't wake up, you're going to wake up on that Saturn retrograde. And especially Saturday too with Mercury square Neptune. The other thing too is look at that Mars. Mars, Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn are actually meeting up in Helio, meaning in space from Earth's or from the sun's point of view. And Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So are you going to take the good luck and jump? And then, or are you going to come into this after these retrogrades where it's going to feel like hell? Like shit. I mean, getting in all this shit. I got to go through Jupiter and Pluto and Saturn. That's a lot. This is going to be a gnarly couple weeks here, folks. And it's all about the choices that you're going to make this full moon and this week, because there's not a lot of options after this. Jupiter retrograde, Venus retrograde, and Saturn retrograde. Sorry to say. That's why I've been calling this the crack in the window. And this is the crack in the window where this is your last call to just, what are you holding on to? Because like if you're crawling through the window, what is it that maybe you have to just ditch it and let it go, because it's like you can't fit through the window if you don't. I know that's a lot. Don't be afraid though. And that's the number one thing is you got to think about being a Taurus. You got to have value of yourself. You got to have that quality life. There's nothing worse right now. I mean, right now already you feel it by going through lockdown where you can't even get access to some of the products that you used to get. And I know that that sounds, well, you're just talking about money or something. It's like, no, that's how you learn through Taurus, believe it or not, is through physical reality, right? Whether it's a plant, whether it's money, whether it's a product, there's so many things. But it's like, when you don't have it, it's like, oh, I gotta like deal with this now, or, like all the hand sanitizers out there now, right? Like, let's be honest, like I bought a couple of them just to check them out. I'm like, this ain't hand sanitizer, this could just put some like alcohol and mixed it with some like water and some of this and just like, and it just goes all over the place. Like, you wanna be dealing with that kind of life, or do you wanna be still knowing that you had in your cupboard because you chose before Indian in the Cupboard, the movie or the book? I don't know. My brother was in that. But, I don't know. I'm feeling that we all are kind of going to be living in a cupboard. We are going to be living in like Mr. Rogers' little world here. And is it going to be a creep show, or is it going to be an amazing, beautiful show? That's dependent on what you choose. And relationships are, like I've been saying for 2 years and even longer, and especially in all the videos I did in September of 2019 and August, when we saw the Sun, Mars, and Venus come together, and the Mars-Venus conjunction. And it was in Virgo with Regulus right there. Like, this is the purity of getting you to where you need to go. And this is where Saturn came direct, was in September of 2019. Now it stops the retrograde here on Sunday or Monday, depending on where you are in the world. If you're on Australia or South America or wherever, or just way more east from me in California. Like, you had that much time to know and to make your choice. And then you got to live with it and wait till, if I remember right, I think Saturn comes direct here. It's like end of September, or maybe it's beginning of October of 2020. So I think it's September. So I love you all. Thank you so much. Make sure that you join High Vibe. Make sure that you watch my What's Next, my 2020 video. It does cover a lot of amazing stuff here that I don't cover, of course, here, but how I show you all, I show you a lot of different stuff, and I give you more of the story, and I also give you some of the astrology stuff too, but I especially craft these horoscopes that are very unique. And this one, we did it for 3.5 hours. And of course, you can get my Love Masterclass, especially during this moment. You want to understand how love works? Oh man, just go, just register to be part of it. It's already done. All the videos are there. 10 classes. Go be part of it. You can go talk to other people that are in the class too. And we had a blast, and it's an amazing school. So love y'all very much. I'm sending you my truth. Love you.